Welcome to the library. As a student, I never really enjoyed reading or doing book reports for school because I just wasn't interested. However, I remember the titles of certain books that were on recommended reading lists throughout my life. Given the state of insanity the world is in at the moment, some of these titles have been coming up in conversation as people have been drawing parallels between some of the books and current society. Books like 1984, Brave New World, Atlas Shrugged, and Animal Farm, just to name a few. Usually I watch my books, meaning I've seen the movies 1984 and Atlas Shrugged. I wanted to watch Brave New World, but I couldn't find a movie about it. Granted, I didn't try that hard to find it, so I finally just caved and decided to read the book. Here are my thoughts about it. Chapter 1 starts off with a tour of the Central London Hatchery and Conditioning Center. A man known only as the director gives a tour of the center to a few young teenage students. So there's eggs in test tubes in a lab, human eggs, and there's sperm in tanks. And the director says the ovaries are harvested from women who do it, quote, voluntarily for the good of society, not to mention the fact that it carries a bonus amounting to 6 months' salary, end quote. So this world has erased natural childbirth and breeds humans in test tubes. It makes humankind seem artificial, like we're just science experiments. I thought of those science kits they sell at Hobby Lobby where you can make a working volcano, but instead it would be grow your own human embryo. For the good of society sounds an awful lot like for the greater good, a term that they've been using a lot these days. The phrase sounds all peachy and nice, but it has always carried a very sinister subtext in my mind. I heard it a lot in the cult I was in, a variation of it. It was do this thing to make others happy. They would make us do what they called service projects, and they lied that it would fulfill our hearts. But I always felt empty and drained after doing a service project. It didn't make me happy to be told I had to make someone else happy. I think the fulfillment of helping another person only happens if you as an individual feel a desire to help that person. If the desire is missing, it feels like an assignment. It feels like homework. It doesn't feel good. So now when all the officials are telling people that they need to do such and so for the greater good, it's just empty words and it makes me feel like there's something sinister going on. Back to the book. There are 5 classes of people. They're called alphas, betas, gammas, deltas, and epsilons. The latter 3 classes, gammas, deltas, and epsilons, are created by the process when an egg splits and becomes twins. In the book, they have this thing called the Bokanovsky's process, which is the process of the egg splitting and becoming twins, but they do it 96 times by continuously dividing the egg. The process creates 96 identical people. And the book also says, quote, and having budded, were dosed almost to death with alcohol, end quote. And budded just means the splitting process. Basically, it says this society purposely makes some of their embryos suffer from fetal alcohol syndrome while they're developing, because they add alcohol to the test tube. Book says the process causes arrested development, and these people are referred to as machines. Quote, 96 identical twins working 96 identical machines, end quote. Okay, quote, not philosophers, but fret sawyers and stamp collectors compose the backbone of society, end quote. What is a fret sawyer, you ask? Because I also had no clue what that word meant, so I had to look it up. Apparently the word derives from fret saw, which is a saw that resembles a coping saw but usually has a deeper frame and is used for cutting curved outlines. Therefore, fret sawyer means someone who operates a fret saw. I learned something new. The backbone of this society is people who work with their hands to do various jobs, but who don't use their brains to think. So there's no philosophers or anyone else who can ask questions. Asking questions is a very important part of life. And when somebody suppresses you from asking questions, you should question why they're doing it. So in this society, they have a brain, but they've been bred not to use the majority of it like a zombie. So the zombie can walk around and see things and occasionally pick things up, but they have nothing upstairs. No one is home. Now, this book may sound completely depressing because it is about a totalitarian society, but I do think it is a very good warning of what society becomes when you think it's some kind of like perfect, happy little place where nothing goes wrong because everything is controlled. This is what you get. When you get complete control, it's just boring. Humans grown in test tubes and they're like on an assembly line. People don't even look different in these Volkanovsky process groups. They have several different process groups, so some of the groups look different from the other groups, but that's not like there's no individualism. Despite this book being incredibly depressing, it did make me think. I am incredibly lucky to be able to think for myself. Nobody gave me fetal alcohol syndrome on purpose. Nobody arrested my development. So I am lucky, even in the time that I'm living right now, even when things are crazy. I am still lucky to be able to think for myself. So it's a universal, valuable gift that we have all been given. Do not squander your ability to think for yourself. Okay, back to the book. Quote, among the rubies moved the dim red specters of men and women with purple eyes and all the symptoms of lupus. Nothing like oxygen shortage for keeping an embryo below par. The lower the caste, the shorter the oxygen. But in epsilons, we don't need human intelligence. End quote. And this is like several different quotes from the director who's giving the tour to these teenage students and probably traumatizing them. But in this society, it's completely normal because they're all crazy. But he's in the book, it's like the director is like super excited that he's showing all of these things, and he's like really happy that there's like lower class people and like people with symptoms of lupus. Like, so this made me think of, this is eugenics gone upside down, because usually eugenics picks the genes that result in the best and the brightest, but this society picks the genes that result in the dumbest and the most controllable. True oppression is when you've literally been bred with no chance at the cellular level, and when no opportunities will ever be given to you. Because in this society, conception is in like the test tube. So then from conception, they start, splitting the egg into making twins, and then they like put alcohol in some of them. And it's like purposely stunting you. And it's just cruel and unusual. I also don't think that these people in the society not knowing what happened to them really makes it any better, because it's like being bred to have lupus and being bred to have fetal alcohol syndrome is cruel and disturbing. Being bred to be brain damaged is just rude. Back to the book. It says sex is assigned during creation and labeled T for the males, a circle for the females, and for those who were destined to become free martins, a question mark. So, you know how people claim now that sex is assigned at birth? That's false. Okay, infants are born male or female by random happenstance. That's why parents get to have the surprise of discovering what sex their infant is. Parents don't choose, oh, I want a girl, and then the doctor goes and puts girl parts on the infant. Like, that's not how we do things right now. What Aldous Huxley wrote in Brave New World, that's sex assigned during creation, is the embryos in this society. As they're grown like common houseplants, are labeled with the sex someone else has decided for them. This is what it means to have sex assigned to you in a lab, purposely designed that way by another human. So Okay, I guess we will end the video book report here for today. Those were my thoughts on chapter 1, and I'll be back later with some more of the thoughts on the other chapters. So, remember to be civil, remember to hang on to the truth, and remember that you can think for yourself.